And I also just want to say, my co-founder, Andrew, and I only realized that we were both giving talks at the same conference yesterday afternoon after he had given his. So I want to apologize in advance. I need the clicker, yeah. I want to apologize in advance for people who may be hearing the same thing twice. We do have different slides, but you know. Okay. So yeah, so I'm Sam. I'm going to tell you about Future House. Okay, so we have a problem, which is that biology is too big for humans to understand, right? There are 20,000 genes in the human genome. There are kind of like 50,000 different diseases that affect humans. As a human, like, you don't have enough time to learn about all the genes, to learn about all the diseases. And even if you did have enough time to learn about all of them, you wouldn't be able to go and assemble them in your brain into like a comprehensive picture of biology, right? And as a result, there are, I like to say there are $100 million bills lying on the ground. This is an example of like a nice write-up from Matthew Kirshner of the founding story of Trace Neuro, which is a company that launched back in November with $100 million to go and investigate UNC13A, which is a gene as a potential target in treating ALS. And if you read through the list of like how they came to UNC13A, it's basically like following a series of breadcrumbs that got them to that point where like all the information that got them to that point was like publicly available in the literature or like analysis of publicly available data sets that ultimately led them to this $100 million raise, right? This could have been discovered like way earlier, right? But just like no one had thought about it. And so the question is, how do we go about identifying things like this that are hiding in plain sight? And the idea here is that we need an AI that can integrate information across all of science, right? So like coming up, like identifying a new cure for a disease requires you to integrate information across like DNA, proteins, all the way up to like disease biology, like how you would conduct clinical trials, things like that, right? There are very few people who know all the information across all of those areas. Today, what people are mostly doing is like building silos. Like most of the AI for biology community is focused on building models that cover just like DNA or that just cover cells or whatever, right? And like that's fine, but in order to come up with discoveries, we need to be able to integrate over all this information. And that's what we think about when when I say like our mission is to build an AI scientist, it's to build models that can integrate over all these different areas in order to come up with new discoveries. And so this is basically what it looks like. AI Scientist is a system that can automate the process of data collection, data analysis, and hypothesis generation. Ultimately, like take as input some quest, I want to come up with a treatment for ALS, and a bunch of like different sources of information, output some experiments that you can then go and actually run in the lab, iterate in order to make discoveries. Okay. We're key facts. We're a nonprofit. We're based in San Francisco. We launched in November 2023. We're currently about 20 people total. We're funded primarily by Eric Schmidt, but we get money from a bunch of other people as well. And I like to tell people we're nonprofit because I do think that like within the next 2 or 3 years, it seems reasonable that like the majority of all good hypotheses that are generated by the scientific community may be generated by us or by systems that look like the systems that we're building or by like other people using the systems we're building. And I do think it's important that to the greatest extent possible, those discoveries remain in the open. On the other hand, if you know anything about biotech, you know that you have to have good IP protections in order to actually commercialize things. And so as we progress on this journey, we will certainly we look for opportunities to spin out companies to commercialize different portions of the work that we're doing. Okay. We basically have 4 steps to our approach. Step number 1 is to assemble data sets. Step number 2 is to build tools. Step number 3 is to go and train agents. And then step number 4 is to validate. This is a short talk, so I'm just going to tell you some about steps 1 and 2. And I'm going to focus first on data collection. I hope that you guys are going to be able to see because there's the sun on the thing. Well, we'll see what happens. But so the first thing you have to do is you have to go and build a data set. So last summer, we put together this data set called LabBench. Which is a bunch of question, basically it's like a question answering benchmark that aims to measure the ability of models to do a bunch of scientific tasks, especially to go and retrieve information from the scientific literature. And so just some examples. This is one of these is FigQA. one of the tasks is FigQA. FigQA is basically like a visual figure understanding benchmark. You may not be able to read this. It's you are given a figure. This is a figure with like a bunch of holes in it and a bunch of annotations about how big the holes are. The question is like, what is the most likely width of the entire image, right? Visual reasoning problem. LitQA is like, can you go and retrieve information specifically from the scientific literature, from full text papers on demand? So we assemble a data set like this, and then we ask, okay, how good are the models? The answer is not very good. Caveat, this is back in, so like the green bars here are humans, the other bars are the frontier models. This is from back like almost a year ago. It's like 10 months ago. So in AI time, this is like completely obsolete, right? But don't worry, I have data from more recently as well. This is like OpenAI's own data because the frontier labs use our data sets and they use it for benchmarking. They use it for benchmarking deep research. And you can kind of just tell, so humans on this graph are here. And if you can't see, all the models are down here. There's like still a big gap. This is for protocol QA, which is part of the benchmark. I'm being told 1 minute, which means that unfortunately you guys are probably not going to actually get to see any of the interesting things. The question, I guess, is what happens when... Do you actually want me to wrap up now? Because I can just leave it as cliffhanger that the models are... Okay, they want me to keep going. I'm sorry. There's nothing I can do. Okay, so the question is... this is like not a fair comparison because... in the graph that I showed you, the models did not have access to tools. Okay, so we're literally just we're asking it to retrieve some information from the literature, but we're not giving it access to the papers. And so you should be like, wait a minute, you're not measuring anything at all. You're just measuring whether has the model memorized the information. And I would say yes, that's correct. That's what we were measuring. So let's see what happens when we give it access to the papers. And so here we take the agent and we give it we build an agent. So we take a language model, we give it access to a bunch of different tools. This is PaperQA2. We released this back in September. The tool, it has access to a tool that allows it to search papers, allows it to go and gather evidence from those papers, allows it to go and search through citations and so on, and then ultimately generate an answer. And this is basically what it looks like when it's running. So this is PaperQA. This is like our internal version, and you can ask it a question like, how has the role of amyloid beta changed in time? And it will go and it will search papers, and here it like finds a bunch of relevant papers. It's going and it's gathering them, it's scraping them in real time. We probably have access to like 100 million, some odds papers, and it's going through and it's actually like figuring out for each paper like which portions are relevant, right? Goes and finds the relevant portions. Based on the portions it finds, it goes and searches for more papers, right? Finds more relevant passages, keeps doing this over and over again, and ultimately comes up with, provides you with like a really nice answer, provides you with a really nice answer, right? So now it has access to the literature. How are the models at answering questions in LitQA? The answer is that now they're really good. So PaperQA2 was actually the first system that was better than humans at retrieving and summarizing information from the scientific literature. This is the retrieval benchmark, and you can see PaperQA is up here and humans are down here, right? So it's flipped. Previously the models were here, right? So PaperQA2 is about 20 points better than humans at answering these questions. And before you ask, these are like PhD students and postdocs in biology who are financially incentivized to get it right and given arbitrarily large amounts of time. So good. So now the model is doing well. If you want to use this, I have another video for time I'm going to skip over. If you want to use this, you can use it. It's publicly available, platform.futurehouse.org. You can go there and you can play with it. PaperQA2 is now there as Crow. There are several other agents you can use as well. We launched it a week or two ago. Okay, that's the video that I'm not going to, this is the video, I'm not going to do it for time. I will just mention, I did say that it's better at retrieval and summarization. How do you tell it's better at both? Well, I just showed you a graph of retrieval. To measure summarization, we were like, hey, there are 20,000 genes in the human genome. Previously, there were only Wikipedia articles for 3,000 of them. So just like for fun, let's just go and write the Wikipedia articles for the other 17,000. So we did that. They're not on Wikipedia because Wikipedia is a volunteer-run organization that is a little bit difficult to work with if you've ever worked with them before. Instead, they are on a website called wikicrow.ai. Crow, like the bird. We're very into birds at Future House. And then .ai. And so you can read about them. But so basically, this was like executing PaperQA 100,000 times. It's like over 1 million papers. And you can go and look at what they look like. The key point here is that when we get PhD students and postdocs in biology to compare blinded articles from our statements from our articles and statements from actual Wikipedia articles, they find half as many hallucinations in the AI-generated articles as they do in the real articles on the same genes on Wikipedia. Okay, so this is what we say, we're better than. So people ask me like, Sam, how do you deal with hallucinations? I say the models do hallucinate, but don't worry, humans hallucinate more. Okay, okay, I'm now really going to wrap up. I just want to show you this one last thing, which is we are moving on to other portions of this pipeline. For data analysis, we just launched a beta for our data analysis agent. This is, you can type in something like, what can you tell me, the question here, you can't read it, what can you tell me about the effect, about the causes of cancer metastasis, and you upload a data set and from a paper, and you press go, okay, and it's just like, it takes a second to start up, and then what it does is it actually goes through this agentic pathway of analyzing the data, looking at the results, looking at the figures, doing that over and over. It actually, in this case, reproduced figure 4b from the paper that the data set came from originally, so that was very cool. And then you can go through, and it's this long Jupyter notebook, basically, of results and figures. So okay, so I'm now over time. I will say about this, this is super cool. If you want to use it, just get in touch with us because we have launched a closed beta. It's this one, the literature search agents are better than humans. The data analysis agent is definitely not better. It needs a lot of work, which is why we're launching a closed beta. But it can already do a lot of really, really cool stuff. And I would just say you should really stay tuned because, like I said at the beginning, 2 or 3 years, these models are actually going to be way better than humans at most things that go into doing science. So, okay, sorry, thank you for humoring me on the time. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sam.